Good morning and welcome to the webinar, Requirements Traceability in Word and Excel is time-consuming, error-prone and waste of money. My name is Fernando Valera. I'm CTO at Visual Solutions and I'll be conducting this webinar today. The webinar will consist of 1 hour in which we will have a PowerPoint presentation and a brief demonstration of our product, Visual Requirements. Throughout the webinar, you will all be muted, but we will leave 15 minutes for Q&A at the end of the webinar to answer all the questions you might have. You might post any questions you have in the panel at the right-hand side at any moment, and as I mentioned, we will leave 15 minutes to address all those questions at the end of the webinar. So please feel free to post your questions at any moment during the webinar in the panel at the right-hand side. Today's webinar, we will cover the following agenda. We will make a brief introduction to Visual Solutions. We will take a look at the importance of requirements management, why Word and Excel is not enough, and a very quick highlight on the round-trip integration with Microsoft Word and Excel. For those of you who have never heard about Visual Solutions, we are a company specialized and focused on requirements engineering solutions. We are a certified worldwide trainer for the IREP certification, which is the International Requirements Engineering Board. We have the headquarters in San Francisco, but we also have offices in London, in Madrid, and Munich. So moving on to the importance of requirements. Nowadays, we more than ever before, we are able to deliver products more or less in time, more or less in budget. We're able to deliver products that pass all of the tests, and we're even able to deliver products with some highlights like red roof, which we feel pretty comfortable with and pretty proud of. But what we're experiencing right now is the fact that at customer delivery, we find out that we have some mistakes. We've forgotten some customer requirements, and product deliveries is not a good moment to find out that we missed out some aspects. So the problem with, or the importance of requirements is that they are difficult to find out missing requirements, and we have some statistics indicating that low quality requirements impact they have a direct impact in the quality of the overall product. So the interesting thing about this metric is the fact that errors introduced in the requirements, correcting those errors in the requirements phase have almost a zero impact, or the effort of correcting it in the requirements phase, it's more or less 1. In regards to the operation or production phase, which is approximately 70. The interesting thing is that this depends on the industry, depends on the area. Based out of our own internal statistics, in software development, the ratio is approximately 1 to 70, whereas in systems engineering, and more specifically in aerospace, the effort or the ratio of correcting an error in the requirements phase in regards to the operation phase is approximately 1,000. This is based out of studies in our customers. In regards to cost, in dollars, the estimation in a car manufacturer was that every dollar spent in the requirements phase, or correcting that error in the requirements phase that could take $1 took $300,000 in the production phase. So we are very well aware of these numbers, and we've made a lot of effort to deliver high-quality products with high-quality requirements. But the FDA states that actually 79% of the software failures were introduced when changes were made to the software, which means that we are able to deliver first version of a product. We are able to make an effort to find out and spot out those low quality requirements, correct them, and deliver a first version. However, the problem comes when we need to make changes over those requirements. That is the focus of today's presentation. Why are we not able to successfully make changes to the requirements? And that is mainly because we are living in a world of chaos, and we need to be able to sort that chaos into an organized structure. And let's see a typical example when we start a project and we consider that using Word and Excel is a phenomenal idea to write the requirement specification. It's very common to have a first meeting to review the requirements, and someone pulls out a PowerPoint or makes a comment with something which is not written in the requirement specification. It can be a refinement of a requirement, it can be a comment, it can be something, but it's very common to find out new stuff very quickly. So that needs to be included in the requirements, and we make this first phenomenal assumption, which is writing our requirement specification _ V2. Okay, perfect. So far, so good. And we can start creating our test cases. The problem is that the customer is still out there. And the problem is when we receive the first phone call and we find out that the customer is actually talking or referring to the first version of our requirement specification, because the information was not centralized, was not available to everybody. So we quickly have a meeting to consolidate all the requirements out there with lots of meeting minutes, everybody understanding a completely different thing, referring to different documents, and still the customer sending emails, sending changes, and the whole thing just goes out of control. So the first step towards organizing all this information is being able to structure it, be able to have one single source of truth, centralizing all the information, making it available to all the stakeholders, to all the users in the company, and everybody involved in the project, so that we can collaborate and we can make sure that everybody validates the same set of requirements. So before moving to the next step, requirements are validated by all the stakeholders, and we have a proof that this has happened. And another key aspect is being able to report whenever we reach a milestone, to be able to send out to everybody involved in the project. So only when we're able to centralize and organize that information, we will be able to implement an effective lifecycle traceability. The traceability will allow us to link, to trace the different paragraphs in our specifications, to be able to answer questions whenever we make a modification, to be able to answer questions like, do we still meet all the customer requirements? Will the same verification criteria still apply? Are all my requirements covered by tests? Is everything implemented or is all the source code being tested? Even though these questions sound completely reasonable, and what we have seen before is that we are able to answer them in the first version of our product. The problem is that we are not always able to demonstrate this or to be able to answer all these questions whenever we make changes, mainly because requirements need to be traced throughout the life cycle, which typically involves not only the requirements, but sometimes some other tools in the life cycle, or some other disciplines like test management, configuration management, issue tracking, and so forth. Traceability should look a lot like this, where we will be able to pull out a paragraph out of a specification and find out exactly what is affected by that paragraph, whether it is a system requirement spec, a design requirements, a test requirement specification, the issues, the risk management, and so forth. The biggest problem when doing change impact analysis is being able to make a 360 analysis of a change impact analysis. The problem is that we sometimes leave out affected elements. So even though we are able to perform some kind of impact analysis, we sometimes leave out things like the risks associated to a specific requirement, or the issues related to that requirement, or similar aspects. So one of the key aspects to quality and compliance is being able to not only to establish, but to update and maintain the traceability throughout the lifecycle traceability. And this is basically what we will be able to see in a couple of minutes during the demo, how to establish this effective traceability. Up until now, the requirements management and traceability has been managed in a document-oriented approach, which is basically the way in which we have managed our music in our computers or MP3s, defining a folder structure, defining the different genres, the different decades, the different singers, the different groups, and defining a folder is automatically defining a project structure, which is a good and a bad thing at the same time. The good thing is that it quickly structures the information, and the bad thing is that it imposes a way of working. So far, with a reduced amount of information, it was okay to organize requirements in or music in a folder structure, but nowadays that we have a huge amount of data, organizing information in folders is no longer effective. And why is that? The main reason is because we typically have different points of view over the same type of over the same information. So imagine we want to reuse requirements throughout different projects. The same requirement might be a critical requirement in one project, and might be a nice to have requirement in another project, or might be for instance might be a safety critical requirement in the project, whereas in another one might not be absolutely critical. So the way of dealing effectively with requirements and with music and with emails nowadays is through an information-centric approach. This is the case of iTunes when dealing with music. It's the case of Gmail when dealing with emails. And it's the case of visual requirements when dealing with requirements. Requirements are tagged opposed to being included in a folder. that means that a requirement will be able to be tagged as belonging to different types. It can be a safety critical issue, but it can be a safety critical requirement, but it can be let's say a engine requirement, and it can be a system requirement, all at the same time. So the main difference between requirements and emails and music is the fact that we need to trace that kind of information. And the way of doing that is graphically. Inside visual requirements, we are able to graphically represent those tags. And as we can see in this diagram, we have in the top left corner a box called user requirements representing one of the tags. Right below that, we have system requirements, which is another tag, and a link between them, satisfied by, indicating that user requirements need to be traced to system requirements. So this traceability this traceability policy is what users are able to do in this project. This allows to not only let users know what they should be doing, but also establish a consistency in the traces, making it impossible to trace user requirements to component tests, as per this example. So, out of this diagram, we will be able to trace elements, keep the consistency, and help users maintain traceability in an efficient way. Keeping all the elements traced, we will be able to find out anomalies if one of the elements is not being traced upstream, downstream, and be able to represent it in the corresponding diagrams. In terms of the round-trip integration with Office, what we have to have absolutely clear is the fact that we need to work with documents. We still need to export and generate requirement specifications, but documents are not the main purpose of our management. For sure, we need to import Word documents, we need to export Word documents, but those are inputs and outputs of our system. Visual requirement is capable of importing and exporting all the information to and from Microsoft Office to be able to touch base with the users and be able to generate evidence of risk management, evidence of requirement specifications, or anything needed for compliance or our process. And finally, one other aspect is the quality of the requirements. We will quickly see during the demo the fact that we need to be able to write good requirements the first time, as soon as possible. And we need to be able to answer some other questions like are customer requirements contradicting, especially if we have many specifications from different subcontractors. Are they talking about completely different things? Are they stating contradicting statements? Are they ambiguous? We need to find out that kind of information as soon as possible. And the way of doing it is through our quality analyzer tool that highlights low quality aspects in the requirements and is able to identify similar requirements between specs or conflicting use of units like inches and centimeters or miles and kilometers. So let's move to visual requirements and let's take a look at the demo. I'll open visual requirements, which is our product to manage requirements. And the first thing I'll do is that I'll open it as a marketing user, just to show how user-friendly and intuitive the user interface can be based out of the role of a user. So this is visual requirements, and as you can see, the marketing user has very limited access to the functionality in the system. Here we can see some marketing requests with the corresponding status. And first thing I'll do is that I'll create a new marketing request, just as an example of on requirements capture. Let's just indicate that Facebook integration justification companies social media platforms. First thing is that here we've got some required and non-required user attributes. One of the things, like priority, is actually the marketing user can actually see the priority, but we can define that they cannot define the priority themselves. So we can keep control of what the users are doing and exactly how they are doing it. And here we have a description with a default value so that we can help users to write requirements, write good requirements. So integration with Facebook. So I'll click on OK. And here we have this new marketing request. Here we've got the status. If I double click on the status, the interesting thing is that my marketing user is not capable of transitioning this requirement to a further state. So what I'll do is that I'll right click, I'll check in this requirement, indicating that I've finished writing it, and I'll just exit the client and I'll reopen it as a system engineer. So that's as much as the marketing role can do in visual requirements. The roles are completely user definable. You, no one else than you knows the roles in your company and who you would like to give access to the tool. So you can indicate or you can define whether you want marketing user or business analyst or whoever you want to give access to the tool. So I'm opening the tool now as a system engineer. Before moving on, I would like to remember that you are muted throughout the demo, but you can post your questions in the panel at the right-hand side. So please feel free to post your questions at any moment during the webinar. Okay, so here we've got this view of the system engineer. The first thing is that we are visualizing requirements in a completely different way as the marketing user. This user is visualizing user requirements as in a document way, the user requirement specification. If we scroll down, one of the chapters in this specification is the marketing requirements, as we can see here. Interesting thing about this chapter is that here we see the Facebook integration, which is the request introduced by the marketing user. So this is very interesting because we gave the marketing user specific access rights over one chapter of the user requirement specification. So we can restrict exactly what we want users to be able to see within the project. So our system engineer is able to visualize all the new requirements, but also we might need to create requirements from other sources. So the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to export, as an example, this specification to Word. And what we're going to do is that we're going to re-import this Word document from Word. So the integration with Word and Excel not only allows us to export and import documents, but also import Word documents from scratch. Okay, so let's just copy and paste. I'll create a new requirement here, and what I'm going to do is that I'm change this requirement in here. I'll save this requirement specification, and I'll re-import it in Visual Requirements. So project import I select the corresponding document, indicating that it's the text that I want to import, and I'll select an existing configuration. So importing from Word allows us to extract the code, the name, the description, and attributes of the requirements within the Word document. Not only requirements, but also use cases or test cases. The only thing that we have to do is map these fields, code name, description, and attributes, to different styles in the document. The styles can be user definable, whether the code is in heading 1, whether the description is in body text, whether it's in normal, anything. And we are able to define a coding structure also. That means that if the requirements do not have a unique ID in the document, we can generate it at this point. Good. So at this point, based out of the configuration that we have defined, the import tool is parsing the Word document, trying to find out paragraphs that match that configuration and extracting requirements. So what we see is the import tool is finding out some requirements in there. Beautiful. 19 capture requirements. The next step, and this is the most interesting step, is comparing the information in the Word document to the information contained in the Visual Requirements database. So for new documents, everything will be new, but for re-importing or synchronizing documents, what we will find is that in our case, everything remains the same, but what we did was that we created a new requirement and we modified a requirement here. We can even check what is it that was changed. In this case, the priority changed from low to high. And we can decide whether we want to accept those changes or not. So in this case, let's just accept the changes. So what we're going to do is that we're going to accept the new requirement and we're going to accept the modification. So this is pretty convenient when we've got a 100-page document and we want to find how many changes were made, opposed to reading the whole document from the beginning. So let's click on Next. We will indicate where we want to place the new requirements. In case we're importing a new document from scratch, we have to indicate what type of requirements we're importing. In this case, customer requirement. It's imported, and perfect. Good. So we can see that the import process finished without errors, one inserted requirement and one updated requirement. Finish, close, no. Good. So what we've seen is that, and here we've got our new requirement and our modified requirement in here that was transitioned from low to high. We can definitely check all the modifications made to our specification, but some other aspect that we would like to do is review and approve the requirements. For this process, we have another way of visualizing requirements. So let's go to this view where we can easily go to those requirements that are pending review from our side. So, for that. So let's reopen the application. Sorry for the inconvenience. Let me restart the application and show you this sign-off process. Perfect. Perfect. So here we have the quick search tool where we will be able to quickly find elements that are pending review. We can just type in ready, and we will find out all the requirements which are ready for review. For instance, the element that we created new, but also the element that was created by the marketing user, like the Facebook integration. If we right-click and check it out, we can right-click and transition it to a reviewed status. From reviewed, we can transition to an approved status. Something that the marketing user was not able to do. And this is following a defined workflow. So workflows are basically different or customizable, and we can define the different statuses a requirement can be in and the transitions between them. Perfect. So once we have approved or reviewed the different requirements in our spec, one of the things we would like to do, and most likely before approving the requirement, is checking the quality of those requirements. One of the things we mentioned is that we need to find out as soon as possible in the process the quality of the requirements. For this purpose, we have the quality analyzer tool that indicates the overall quality of each one of the requirements. So here we've got some requirements with medium quality, we've got one requirement with low quality, and if I double click on this one, I'll find out the reason why this requirement is low quality. Okay, let's just check the different metrics. Here we've got this metric indicating that the element has 3 ambiguous sentences. We can see the frame is in red, indicating that it's a low quality aspect. So ambiguous terms include necessary, at least, based on, but we have approximately like 35 metrics, including compound terms, conditional mode, like should, may, can, escape clauses like example, etc. Volatility, indicating that this requirement has changed too many times. Speculative sentences like it is not really necessary, and things like that. So we can quickly spot out low quality aspects in the specification. Let's just close this and go back to visual requirements. Good. So let's take a look at the traceability. So what we've done so far is including new user requirements. We have actually modified some requirements in our spec, like this one here. Let's check it back in, or check it out and make some other modifications. So a way of finding out what elements have been modified is by highlighting in red the suspect links, or those elements that have been touched. What we see here is that this first requirement is highlighted in red because it was modified at some point. This other requirement was imported and modified, and we have some other elements that might be affected by some changes. So how do these changes that I've made to this spec affect other specifications? Okay, first of all, let's take a look at the traceability policy defined in this project. So if I go to the project organization block diagrams, I can see all these diagrams defining this traceability policy. If I open this diagram, the first thing that the tool will warn me about is that be careful, because if you modify it, you might be modifying the policy in the project. Yes. I would like to take the opportunity to remind you that you can post any question at any moment in the panel at the right-hand side. So please feel free. We will. I will leave some time at the end to go through all those questions. Perfect. So this diagram here is defining the traceability policy. So far, we have been working over this specification, the user requirement specification, but now we have a system requirement spec that should be coming out of this user requirement spec. At the same time, we have a component requirement spec coming out of the system requirement spec, and different test cases related to them. This diagram is not just a diagram, but it's defining the structure in the project, which means that if I activate this relationship between user and system requirements, what I'll be doing is that I'll be going to a traceability matrix indicating the relationships between both of them, between the user requirements in the rows, and here each row is a requirement in the user requirement spec, and we can see the new requirement I imported from Word, and most probably I'll be able to see the Facebook integration requirement I created from the marketing requirements. And in the columns, I see the system requirements. Perfect. One of the first things I would like to find is some anomalies. I would like to find out which user requirements have not been traced to system requirements. And here we see that we've got the new requirements I created, but some other elements not traced yet. Another anomaly is system requirements not traced upstream, that they do not have any origin, or what I like to call a spontaneous functionality. Nobody knows where it comes from. So some other, if any of you is having any difficulty entering questions in the question panel at the right hand side, please feel free to use the chat window, and I'll cover both of them afterwards. Okay, let's go back to the user requirement specification, where we had this requirements in red indicated that they had been modified. Okay, the interesting thing about the suspect links, which is what we're making use of, is that I would like to know how these changes affect my system requirement specification. So what I'll do is that I'll navigate to that specification. And here I have the system requirement spec. I'll scroll down, and what I find here is that some requirements in the system requirement spec are highlighted in red. Those elements are the ones that are affected by the requirements I changed in the user requirement spec. Putting it another way, what we're doing is that we're doing a change impact analysis. I modified a user requirement, and now I see that these two requirements are affected. Good. We can go spec by spec, finding out the impact of a change, but also we have some other ways of visualizing this. Typically, we would perform an impact analysis before making the change. And the way of doing it is going through a downstream impact analysis. Good. So here we have our user requirements, and we can see this two modified requirements. We can see the new requirements, like the Facebook integration. And before these requirements, we see the this plus icon that will help us find out the affected elements. So this customer requirement here is related to 3 system requirements, but also is related to a risk. This element here is related to 2 system requirements and is related to a risk too. We can continue extending, and we can find that this risk is related to a specific mitigation action. The system requirements are related at the same time to software requirements, which are related at the same time to risks, which generated mechanical requirements. So what we're visualizing here, and related to each one of the requirements, we see the corresponding test cases, and we see the results of those test cases. So what we're visualizing here is a full 360 change impact analysis, straight from the user requirements, or the highest level requirements, down to the lowest level in our lifecycle traceability. Interesting thing is that this lifecycle traceability is user definable. You define the traceability policies, you define the elements you want to have in your project. Let's take a look at another example of a block diagram, like an agile software development. In here we have software requirements, where we have the epics, user stories, the tasks, and so on. So this is just another way of another methodology, and let's take a look at the elements contained in here. Requirements, agile software development. So in here we have the epics, the user stories, the tasks, sprints, backlog, item status, and so forth. So based out of this user-definable block diagrams and traceability policies, we can define the different processes, and we can even implement hybrid methodologies, including agile methodologies, waterfall, which is typically the case in hardware, software projects. Last of all, we can generate any kind of reports out of the project. So we can, as we saw at the beginning, export the requirements to specifications, Word specifications, but also we can generate metrics, dashboards, and any kind of report that we need. We can also make calculations. We can generate a history of the changes of a requirement. We can generate risk analysis dashboards to find out how many risks are traced to requirements, how many requirements are traced to risks, what's the percentage of an acceptable, and to be investigated risks, and so forth. So all this is done through the report manager that I'm showing at this point. Okay. So while the report is generating, I'll check the questions in the panel. Perfect. So the reports can be generated on demand and can be generated in batch mode. This means that we can leave the templates available to the users, but we can also ask Visure to generate the reports automatically at some point. So for instance, we can generate every Monday morning a report with a project status, or every 2 weeks, or anything like that. This report is showing the consistency, requirements and services without a description, number of requirements, the number of traces, the number of versions of requirements, and the average number of versions per requirement. This is a very interesting metric. We've got 3 versions per requirement, which is pretty acceptable. Whenever it gets beyond 10, that's a very volatile project, so we have to be careful with that. And once we generate this, we can export it to HTML, RTF, Word, and so on. I'll just generate a final report, a traceability report, just as an example of a report containing traceability. Okay. So in a minute, we will be addressing the questions. So please, again, feel free to post your questions in the panel at the right-hand side. So this traceability report I have generated displays the user requirements in the first column, the system requirements related to the first one in the second column, the component requirements, third column, and the test cases along with the status in the last column. So here we can see the full traceability from the user requirements to the lowest level. And then we can just generate this HTML, PDF, or anything like that. Desktop traceability matrix report. And here we have our PDF document with the full traceability of the project. Perfect. So now I'll leave 10 minutes for Q&A. Before that, I would like to make a summary. Why is Word and Excel not enough? One of the things we've seen is that there's in Word and Excel there's no multiple access. There are no access rights. People can either open the document or cannot. Inside Visure and dedicated and specialized tools, you can give access to whatever you want a user to see. The traceability inside Word and Excel is non-existent. We can just copy and paste IDs, but experience tells us that it's almost impossible to keep that updated. There's no configuration management to deal with the complexity of the projects nowadays, and there's no reporting at all. The specification is the report itself, but we cannot filter, or very difficult to filter. There's no cross-specification reporting at all, or project status reporting at all. And the most important aspect is that there is no process behind it. You can open a Word document and generate any kind of requirement, and you can trace it to anything else. And finally, the Word and Excel environments do not have traceability with other tools. We can import and we can export, but there's no synchronization, no traceability. So, as I mentioned, please feel free to post some questions here. We have some questions. The first one is whether is Visure integrated with DOORS? Yes, Visure is fully integrated with IBM Rational DOORS in several ways. The first one is a complete migration from a DOORS environment, so we can take all the information you currently have in your DOORS database inside Visure. It's so that you can switch off the database and automatically start working inside Visure. Apart from that, we have a round-trip exchange of information online and offline. That means that if you have some other teams that are working with DOORS, you can synchronize real-time information with those databases. So if they create a requirement in DOORS, you automatically see that same requirement inside Visure requirements in the other way around. And finally, we have this offline exchange of requirements, so that if you have a customer or a supplier working with DOORS, you can send them an XML file that they will be able to open, modify, and send back to you. There's another question here. This Visure offer an integrated ALM or PLM offer. So Visure is a specialized requirements engineering tool. That means that we are best in breed, and we try to provide a specialized environment. We do provide a set of integrations to plug in your requirements management into your ALM and PLM environment. So depending on the tools you're using, you can either use Visure to plug it into your current ALM offering, or you can even build your own ALM platform by integrating best of breed tools. Some other questions. Does Visure support risk management and FMEA? Yes, Visure supports risk management. Let's quickly check the risk analysis features here. This is a way of implementing risk management, where we have the requirements, and related to the requirements, the corresponding risks and mitigation actions. In here, we have a specific visualization of this information. Okay. So here we have the risks, and for each one of those risks, we have a set of attributes like severity, occurrence, and detection. Based out of these attributes, we make a calculation of the RPN, or the risk priority number. And based out of this risk priority number, we calculate the risk level, whether it's an acceptable an acceptable or to be investigated risk. And out of those risks, we have mitigation actions that take an acceptable risk to an acceptable status. So we can drop down the severity or the detection or all of them. This is an FMEA process, but we also support the ASIL risk management in ISO 262. That means that we can define the different risks associated to requirements and make sure we're mitigating and achieving all the safety goals. Any other question? Integration with test management tools. Which tools are you integrated for test management? So we have integration with several software and hardware verification tools, as well as ALM tools. This include tools like HP Quality Center. We have integration with LDRA, with VectorCast. We have integration with ALDEC for hardware verification, and a number of other tools. There's another question on which other tools are you integrated with? We have integration with issue tracking tools like Jira, Atlassian Jira, and approximately 50 other tools. So if you're interested in any specific integration, please feel free to contact us, and we'll be glad to send you some further information. So we've reached the end of the webinar. I would like to thank you all for your time. If you're interested in having a specialized or dedicated demo for your team with your data, with your specific needs, please feel free to contact us at visualsolutions.com at info@visualsolutions.com, or contact me directly at fvalera@visualsolutions.com. We'll be more than glad to get back to you to organize this demo. Thank you very much. We will be posting the recording of the webinar soon, and we will be sending out the link. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Goodbye.